Welcome to this edition of CBN News Focus. I'm Mark Martin. Is the United States losing influence in the Middle East? That's the question many of America's traditional allies are asking after the signing of the recent heavily criticized nuclear deal with Iran. And as Chris Mitchell reports from Jerusalem, the consequences are already rippling through the region.
After Geneva, many Middle East experts see a stronger Iran, a weaker America, and a region teetering on the brink.
So we in the Middle East, we in Israel, and as I see in the Arab press, because this is my business, to follow Arab press, they are confused and they don't believe anymore in American influence in the region.
For decades, American influence acted like a rudder steering events in the Middle East. Now, many Mideast experts, like former Israeli ambassador to Egypt, Zvi Mazel, believe the region is losing its way.
The Middle East lost its compass. You see, in the old times there used to be the Soviet Union and the United States, but now everyone goes his own direction.
The perception is that America will not be here around for long, and Iran is the coming superpower.
A major change in U.S. Mideast policy is the attempt to turn Iran from an adversary to a friend.
It's not completely friend yet, but I'm saying it's on the way too. I believe this is what President Obama sees, that there will be a dialogue with Iran and there will be relations with America, and Iran will become a good boy, a good student. We don't believe it.
The diplomatic courtship with Iran and the perception of waning U.S. influence have led to shifting and unprecedented alliances in the region. Since many Mideast nations see Iran as an existential threat, the Gulf states are considering uniting for their own self-defense. And both Egypt and Saudi Arabia have reached out to find another ally besides the United States.
There is now a dialogue between Saudi Arabia and Russia. It doesn't happen every day.
Yeah. Can you believe it? Saudi Arabia. Prince Bandar went twice to Moscow lately.
Pincus, Mazel, and others now see the Middle East with America retreating and Russia advancing.
Putin is really a very happy man. Everywhere where America is going away, he's coming in immediately.
Mazel warns Russia's comeback in the Middle East is just one consequence of U.S. Mideast policy. He also warns if Iran does get a nuclear bomb, it would be the beginning of a Mideast nuclear arms race. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Here's a shocker. According to a member of the Obama administration, the United States is an Islamic country, and he isn't just another bureaucrat. He has a senior role on the Homeland Security Advisory Council, and he's been tied to the Muslim Brotherhood. Eric Stackelbeck brings us this alarming story.
This provocative statement created a firestorm last month because of its contents and the author's government role. I do consider the United States an Islamic country with an Islamically compliant constitution. The tweet by Mohammed El-Biari raised eyebrows thanks to his senior role on the Department of Homeland Security Advisory Council, where he helps craft America's counterterrorism policies. It's a position one analyst says El-Biari is not fit to hold.
He goes to bat for the Muslim Brotherhood. He is passionate that they are the moderate good guys that the U.S. needs to ally with.
Ryan Morrow is a national security analyst for the Clarion Project. He's interviewed El-Biari at length and says the senior Homeland Security advisor staunchly supports the radical Muslim Brotherhood.
He had the symbol that was most closely associated with the Muslim Brotherhood from when the Egyptian military cracked down on them. All the Muslim Brotherhood supporters had a specific sign that they put up on their Twitter and their Facebook pages, and he was right along with them.
El-Biari has praised Muslim Brotherhood icon and al-Qaeda favorite Saeed Qutb and spoke at a 2004 event honoring Iran's Ayatollah Khomeini. In addition, CBN News reported in 2011 that El-Biari stood accused of leaking sensitive government documents to the media. In light of those charges, Texas Congressman Louis Gohmert pressed former Homeland Security Chief Janet Napolitano in a heated exchange.
Are you saying before this Congress right now that as Secretary of Homeland Security, that it is a lie that Mohammed El-Biari downloaded material from a classified website using the secret security clearance you gave him? Are you saying that's a lie?
I'm saying that is inaccurate. That is correct. He, as far as I know, did not download classified documents. What bothers me, quite frankly, are the allegations that are made against anyone who happens to be Muslim.
Well, the allegations are not because he is Muslim.
It is still unclear whether any formal investigation of El-Biari actually took place at DHS. What is clear is El-Biari's recent promotion at the department.
In September 2013, he was promoted. So he not only is an official advisor, he's one of the select advisors within that group to influence policy.
El-Biari and the Department of Homeland Security did not respond to CBN's request for comment. El-Biari is not the only Obama administration advisor who's been tied to the Muslim Brotherhood.
There's lots of evidence. The President of the United States personally takes counsel from Mohammed Majid, and that means the enemy is inside the wire.
Majid has reportedly met with President Obama to advise him on immigration and counterterrorism policy. He also sits on a Department of Homeland Security working group on, quote, violent extremism. Yet national security expert Frank Gaffney told CBN News that the organization Majid leads has troublesome ties.
He is the president of the largest Muslim Brotherhood front organization in the United States, the Islamic Society of North America.
In 2007, federal prosecutors named ISNA as an unindicted co-conspirator in the largest terrorism financing trial in American history. The defendants were convicted of funding the terror group Hamas. Majid's group was also mentioned in secret Muslim Brotherhood documents uncovered by the FBI.
The very first group on this Muslim Brotherhood strategic plan was the Islamic Society of North America.
Despite ISNA's radical track record, President Obama delivered a video address at the group's annual summit this year.
Assalamu alaikum, and congratulations to Imam Majid and everyone at the Islamic Society of North America on your 50th annual convention.
One leading Egyptian newspaper recently claimed that the Brotherhood is stepping up its efforts to infiltrate the United States. It identified what it says are 30 Brotherhood operatives that are currently conducting influence operations on U.S. soil. Eric Stakelbeck, CBN News, Washington.
Coming up, international test scores are putting American students behind their Asian counterparts. But some critics in the education community say there's no need to worry. Welcome back. American students are lagging behind their Asian peers, according to the latest international test results. Every 3 years, these math, science, and reading scores fuel new calls for reform and increased funding. But critics of the current school reform movement say we should stop worrying. And as Heather Sells reports, some in the education community say we should not put so much stock in these scores.
American students scored below the international average in math and about average in science and reading. At the top of the pack, China, South Korea, Japan, and Hong Kong. But some in education, like Professor Christopher Tinkin, say these results are not cause for alarm. That's because American students are often pitted against elite students in other countries.
This test is only taken by about 6,000 kids in a country, and the testing populations vary widely. In Singapore, you won't find a lot of students with special needs or second language learners, even in school by age 15, let alone the testing population.
Tinkin also doesn't buy the argument that our test results mean we won't be able to compete globally. That's because the tests don't measure for qualities like creativity and innovation.
We've never scored at the top of the world on any international test since they've started in 1964. So we have about a 50-year history of not doing well on tests, but doing very well economically.
So why does the U.S. keep participating in tests where we're at a disadvantage and perform poorly? One reason may be the education reform industry, which thrives on educational crises.
And the current school reform narrative is that American schools are failing, therefore we need to change things. Changing things in education results in good business for those companies that are involved in education reform.
Heather Sells, CBN News.
Critics say the playing field is far from level on these tests. That's because the U.S. is testing diverse students from special needs kids to second language learners. China is testing its elite students, not the poorer performing ones who may not even be in school at age 15. Up next, a troubling trend on the internet. Parents using message boards to advertise adopted children they no longer want. See how one couple rescued a child at risk when we come back. A recent investigation into international adoptions came up with a disturbing report. A growing number of parents are using the internet to get rid of children adopted from abroad. And not only is that a double tragedy for these children, it can also be downright dangerous. Charlene Israel reports.
Evan Jones enjoys spending time with his family, but life hasn't always been carefree for the Ukrainian teenager. His mother died when he was 8. Then Evan and his sister went to live with his grandmother. But when she could no longer care for them, they were placed in an orphanage. He left the institution when a U.S. couple who had hosted him one Christmas decided to adopt him.
It was really amazing when I actually got a family because, I realized that God answered my prayer. And I had a little brother and a sister and another brother, so it was like a complete family like I imagined.
Evan moved with his new family to Charlotte, North Carolina. But it wasn't the happy ending of his dreams. His parents quickly learned they weren't fully prepared to take care of Evan, and they searched for a new family to take him in. Evan's story is not unique.
An 18-month investigation by Reuters uncovered parents using internet message boards to advertise unwanted adopted children. It's a practice known as rehoming.
Most of the online posts featured children 6 to 14 who had been adopted from countries such as China, Russia, Ethiopia, and Ukraine. The report found these transactions taking place on 8 Yahoo message boards and a Facebook group. One from a mother who adopted a Guatemalan 11-year-old reads, "I am totally ashamed to say it, but we do truly hate this boy." Adoption experts blame part of the problem on lack of government oversight and little international monitoring. Some of the children ended up in unsafe situations.
Children were placed with pedophiles and with people who had psychiatric problems and violent tendencies.
A Liberian teen says her adoptive parents gave her away when she was 13. She says her new guardians told her to sleep in the same bed with them and that the new mom slept without clothing. A girl adopted from Russia was sent to 3 different homes in the U.S. over a 6-month period. Chuck Johnson of the National Council for Adoption says that while the majority of adoptions work out well, he calls the ones uncovered in the news investigation troubling.
It's a double tragedy because when you consider the circumstances the child endured.
He urges families considering adoption to do their research, especially in international arrangements. That includes their adoption agency and prospective child's background. Families should also be prepared to deal with the emotional scars suffered by many orphans.
That's something that every family has to enter into this arrangement realizing that it's very likely that the child that they adopt will have some special needs.
Last December, Russia banned U.S. adoptions of its children after an American woman put her 7-year-old adopted son on a plane back to Russia all by himself. The mother claimed the boy was violent and had severe psychological problems. Adoption experts say in many cases, overwhelmed parents don't know there is help. For those who choose to relinquish their parental rights, there is a safe legal way to do so through adoption dissolution.
It'll be done under the auspices of professional care with social workers and counselors and courts, all making sure that the children's best interests are paramount in wherever they go.
Evan is reaping the benefits of such an arrangement. David and Julie Jones heard about his need for a new home through an international adoption support group.
We had a loving family who's saying, "We can't do this, we need help."
The Joneses and their teenage son built a bond with Evan that grew stronger over time.
I really liked them, and over time I began to call him Mom and Dad.
The Joneses eventually adopted Evan.
We did all this with the consent of the other
parents and with lawyers in both states. We covered our bases every way that we knew that we should.
He says he has no hard feelings toward his previous family. While the family didn't want to do an on-camera interview, they gave us this statement. Evan is and always will be a member of our extended family. In fact, we consider the entire Jones family to be a part of our extended family. Our children think of Evan as a cousin of sorts now, and we hope that we will always have a relationship with Evan. Meanwhile, the Joneses admit taking Evan in has its challenges, but they are committed.
We will not tell you that we have not raised our voices in our home, because we have. But once we have been able to, with God's help, say, okay, God, what is it in me that is pushing that button, and God reveals it, and we can repent or be healed ourselves. Then when the child gets angry and we don't get angry, that's when the healing begins.
And that makes Evan even more grateful.
There's been really bad moments, but they've still kept me and loved me and cared for me. And I mean, after those things are over, they would treat me the same way they treated me before.
Many of the internet sites used for adoption rehoming shut down after the Reuters investigation. Up next, Sarah Palin is on a mission to put Christ back in Christmas. The former vice presidential candidate unloads on angry atheists and the war on Christmas. Thanks for staying with us. The makers of the hit TV Bible series are gearing up for another religious historical drama, The Dovekeepers, this time for CBS. TV producer Mark Burnett and his wife, actress Roma Downey, scored a major hit with their miniseries The Bible earlier this year. The Dovekeepers is about 4 women who worked to save 900 Jews under siege by the Roman army at Masada. CBS announced it will air a 4-hour miniseries based on it sometime in 2015. Sounds interesting. In 2008, Sarah Palin made history as the first Republican woman to run for vice president. Today, she's not on the campaign trail, but she's still in the spotlight. And now she's right in the middle of the battle to protect the heart of Christmas. David Brody brings us that story.
In a way, it's like 2008 all over again.
Hundreds of East Texans lined up for hours this morning.
It was a fan frenzy outside Barnes & Noble.
Even though it's been 5 years since Sarah Palin ran for vice president, her fans still can't get enough of her.
This has been one of my dreams come true, so she's just a wonderful person inside and out. So this has been the highlight of my life. It's history in making.
The hoopla is over Palin's new book called Good Tidings and Great Joy, Protecting the Heart of Christmas. Palin tells CBN News that the book is a rallying cry for Christians to stand up against those who want to keep faith out of the public square.
We were founded, as written in our Charters of Liberty and the documents that created America, we're founded on a Judeo-Christian faith that would allow forever the right to express our respect for faith in America.
Palin says those rights are under attack from atheists, and she has a name for them in the book: Joe McScrooge.
How dangerous is someone like a Joe McScrooge to America?
That's a great question, because a Joe McScrooge, armed with an attorney, is quite dangerous.
Indeed, each year stories like this constantly make the news. Just recently, a Colorado school stopped its association with Operation Christmas Child after atheists threatened to sue. Same thing in Alsip, Illinois, where the small town stopped putting up its annual cross on the water tower for fear of a lawsuit.
The road that we are on today is too many of those angry atheists armed with attorneys would try to take away that freedom to express faith. Well, it's going to end in ruin unless we do something about it.
And that's where the fight comes in. Palin, who knows a thing or two about adversity, tells Christians not to be intimidated.
I want this book to be a call to action, to take steps for school districts, for communities, for business owners, for families to understand they don't have to hide their faith. They don't have to be embarrassed by it.
Palin adds this isn't just about fighting lawsuits.
This war on Christmas is really the tip of the spear when it comes to a greater battle that's brewing. And that battle that's brewing is those who would want to take God out of our society, out of our culture, which will lead to ruin, as history has proven.
Palin also sees big government as part of the problem and makes it clear that includes the Obama administration.
To tell you the truth, David, I don't know what they're doing right.
She keeps her message out there as a Fox News contributor. Her political action committee is loaded with supporters and money to burn in the upcoming 2014 midterm elections. And candidates still seek her endorsement. She hits the road in important political states like Iowa, preaching constitutional conservatism.
The crowning achievement of their Church of Big Government, Obamacare.
But Palin isn't interested in just taking on this president. Her heart is for a better America, a place where people can express their faith freely. In the book, she says without a faith in Christ, she wouldn't have been able to stand through those very tough times when she ran for vice president.
There is no way I would be standing if it weren't for that faith that I adopted as a kid, asking Christ into my life, putting my life in His hands, saying, God, you're my creator. I've got to believe that you know more about destiny than I do. So, heaven forbid I try to orchestrate it myself. Lord, send me, I'll go.
David Brody, CBN News.
That's all for this half hour of the CBN News Channel. You can find more of our exclusive coverage of the issues you care most about at cbnnews.com. Also, stay up to date with CBN News through Facebook and Twitter. Hope you'll join us next time. Have a great weekend.